Stuck in negative patterns with your spouse? This is what one couple in Intimacy Mastery had to say. Our communication had broken down. Through the monthly workshops and coaching, we learned to address issues constructively using our Intimacy Mastery roadmap. Don't wait. Visit intimacymastery.com.
From Naples, Florida, this is the One Extraordinary Marriage Show, where being busy is overdone, romancing is fun, and scheduling sex has taken the guesswork out of wondering when you're going to get some. I'm Tony DeLorenzo, your co-host, along with my beautiful wife, Elisa. From coast to coast and around the world, thank you for joining us. It's time to talk sex, love, and commitment. Give us a call or text us on the Hug Hotline at 858-876-5663 or send us an email to hugs@oneextraordinarymarriage.com. In today's episode, we talk about menopause-related physical intimacy challenges that are caused by hormonal changes.
And there's a quote from William Paisley that says, "Communication is the fuel that keeps the fire of your relationship burning. Without it, your relationship goes cold." And I would say that as we're talking about these, physical intimacy challenges that are related to menopause, that if you aren't talking about it, the relationship most definitely is going to grow cold. And we're going to jump into that in today's episode. But first, we start every episode here at One Extraordinary Marriage with a hug. And a hug is an opportunity for us to celebrate you, to share what you're doing with the one family, because what you're doing and how you're being intentional in your marriage often unlocks somebody else to go after an area of their marriage as well. And this came from an email that we received that said, "We're actually in the midst of a 7-day sex challenge." Mm-hmm. Wow. The creativity on both our parts has truly been over the top. We've had picnics under a tarp in the rain with candles and sleeping bags. We've had bubble baths with candles and massages and toys and ordered Uber Lube.
Right on.
I'm looking forward to the rest of the week. But all in all, it's actually allowed us to communicate better than ever before and open up some dialogue about finances and goals. So I can confirm that it's not necessarily the actual physical act of intercourse as it is the connection that it creates. And I will say, if we've been talking about sex challenges literally since episode 1, which is the 60-day sex challenge. And what this spouse had shared is that, if the two of you will fully get engaged with that, there is so much more than just the act of sexual intercourse. And I love that they're experiencing that. That's such an incredible hug.
Yeah. Congratulations to you guys. And as Elisa said, it's much more than the act and of intercourse. That really is why we have been proponents of it, sharing it since we did our first one 17 years ago.
Coming up on 17. Holy.
Yeah.
Wow. Almost 17 years ago. Yes. So as Tony said at the top of this episode, we're talking about those menopause-related physical intimacy challenges that are being caused by hormonal changes. And I have to, I often share, where does this come from, right? Mm-hmm. Where does an episode come from? Because it helps you all, I think, just to know, what are the conversations that are happening and that type of thing. And this episode literally came from a menopause shouldn't suck session that we had last week, because we're sitting there, and in menopause shouldn't suck, we don't just talk about the physical changes, right? The weight gain or the insomnia or things like that. We also talk about the emotional and the relational aspects of it. And we were having this conversation. And one wife shares how, here in this season of life, in the menopause journey, there are just times when her husband reaches out to touch her and she doesn't want to be touched. And then another wife is like, "Oh my gosh, me too. In my case, my husband's hands are too hot." And the other wife says, "Oh my gosh, well, in my case, it's because I'm cold and his hands are cold." And so now we've got all of all of these different sensations are popping around. And then another wife shares, "For me, it feels like I'm back kind of in those toddler years where just because my body was sensitive to touch and somebody was always touching me, it just kind of felt like all of that." And so we're having this incredible...
So many different things happening there.
But all around being touched.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but different ways
Yes.
of feeling it and experiencing it.
And so, and especially when the one said, just kind of feeling all touched out. And for those of you that are in the little kid phase, just remember that feeling of being touched out, because it may resurface in like 15 to 20 years when you're in perimenopause. So I'm just letting you know, it's kind of one of those things that could come back. Maybe not, because like I tell all the wives, not every wife, not every symptom.
True.
But, it is something that we're familiar with. And as we're talking about physical intimacy, very specifically, as we defined it in the 6 pillars of intimacy, this is your non-sexual touch, right? It's something that, it might be the hugs or the cuddles or the massages or kisses or all of those different types of things. And yet, when there are these hormone fluctuations that are happening in her body, and as we talked about in the male hormonal transition episode about a month ago, also in his body, there can be this disconnect. There can be these feelings of rejection. There can be a lot going on between husband and wife over something as simple as, don't touch me.
Right. And let's also share this too, is you may have had the greatest and the best physical intimacy for the longest time. And so this feels awkward. There's a disruption. It feels alien, like, wait a minute. We were going along just fine for years. And now when I reach out to you, you're sort of pushing my hand away. And so realize that seasons, we say this a lot, and yet even us experiencing this, I wouldn't have thought about this at 35, at 40, at 45. But at 51, almost on the verge of 52, I can say in the last year, I think we, and you would agree, have experienced this ourselves.
And it's why we do episodes like this. It's talking about, how does a couple navigate this? How does a husband recognize or know that it's the hormones that are creating the distance and it's not a rejection of him? But
say that again, because that's a big one, right? No. It's recognizing that it's the hormones and not a rejection of you, husband. Like that's a big one. And I just repeated it myself just for me to hear it, because we think, and this is just me as a husband.
You are not the only one.
I'm reaching out to you. I want to touch you. I want to cuddle with you, and you squirm away. So instantaneously, I think it's about me.
You don't want me. You don't desire
me.
You don't like me. You don't want to spend time with me. All of the you don't want to.
All that.
All the don't want to. And then on her side, it's also like, how does a wife, when this is going on, share what's happening, even if she doesn't fully understand it herself, right? Because it's like all of a sudden it's like, well, I don't know. I just don't want you to touch me, right? Like just don't, right? And it becomes this place of tension, of disconnect, and ironically, in the great scheme of where life happens, this is likely happening when there are other life transitions happening as well. So if you have kids, they're getting older, their needs and their attitudes are changing. So you got all of that going on. If your parents are still living, you're likely navigating their changing needs and the stress that comes with this. And there are just times when you've got all of these things going on where maybe a nice hug or a cuddle or a kiss could bring you all together, and yet it's not happening.
Where I saw this begin to change in our marriage, and I did not realize it then, I do now, was...
Hindsight's a beautiful thing.
Hindsight is a beautiful thing. But I wish I would have known what I knew now then. But we've shared with many of you, even from stages across the country, when you see Elisa and I on stage, we're not one of these married folks that are holding hands and need to be like on top of each other and touching one another. We're up there to impart and to impact, but it's also who we are. We can go on walk and talks and not hold hands and be totally okay with it. Many of you are opposite. You're like, no, we need to be holding hands. We need to be like my arm around my wife, whatever that may be. So for us, and we've shared this, for the longest time, it was naked cuddling. We'd go to bed. That was the way that we strengthened our physical intimacy pillar. If you're new, welcome. You're going, what's a pillar? We wrote the best-selling book, The 6 Pillars of Intimacy. Physical intimacy is one of those pillars. And I started to notice this change, that we would be in bed naked, and yet that physical connection that we would have and were having begin to feel more distant. It was less and less. I wasn't able to cuddle Elisa. She was hot. You could tell that she was like irritated with me. And again, I took this as rejection of me, like something is wrong with me, not understanding what we know now. And so if you're experiencing this, do know you're not alone. And we've had to address it even ourselves. And I think we're sort of coming on the other side of this. Like we're starting to get back to sleeping naked again and being able to touch one another. Would you say, or where do you think we are in this journey? Yeah, I think it's
definitely, there was definitely a low point there where that was just not happening at all. And that, again, hindsight's 2020. And I think that's why episodes like this are so powerful, because if it's happening in our marriage, if I hear it, as the wives get together, we meet 3 times a month, right, for Menopause Shouldn't Suck. And we're having these conversations and different things are coming up about touch. Like, when I keep hearing it, I know that we have to discuss it and we have to shed light on what's actually happening inside the body. And I love it when my wives will ask questions and I'm like, I'm going down the rabbit hole. Let's figure out what is going on, because I love doing the research side of this. And it's so interesting to really understand how the fluctuations in estrogen, and that really menopause is all about the fluctuations in all your hormones, but for a woman specifically, it is about her estrogen, declining estrogen. And what does that do to the skin? To this very, very large organ that husbands like to touch. The largest. But that husbands like to touch, and then all of a sudden seems to become off limits. Right? And it's absolutely fascinating. So husbands, listen up. You're going to get a little bit of a science lesson. Wives, you're also going to get a little bit of a science lesson here. But I'm sharing this because I think if we understand better how our bodies work, it allows us to have different conversations. It allows us to go into this place of, or avoid the place of out rejection and step into a place of, can we have a conversation about what's going on? And that's empowerment. And that's what we want for you guys in your marriage, to go, okay, I understand this. Let me ask better questions. Let me ask questions, right? So let's talk a little bit about what happens with estrogen. So when the hormones start changing, the fluctuations actually start to affect the nerves, which can, with all of the nerves, change our sensory perception. And it can actually increase the perception of pain and discomfort, which means that sometimes, husband, your touches don't feel good. And it's not that you're doing anything different necessarily than what you've done before. It's that the estrogen receptors in the hormones in her skin, let me back up. The receptors in her skin, because of the declining estrogen, are short-circuiting in a different way.
Now, this isn't for everybody, and this is going to happen to all. This is like within Menopause Shouldn't Suck, would you say? Again, Elisa and the wives in Menopause Shouldn't Suck meet 3 times a month. They're on a group coaching call together. Like, what are the differences that you hear amongst the wives in there?
Okay, so I have heard these painful touches. I'm going to, there's a number of different things.
Okay.
And so I'm going to touch on that. It's such a great question. The other thing that happens with these changes in estrogen is that the collagen and the natural oils that the skin produces are impacted. They're reduced, right? Which means that a lot of women can experience drier, tighter, or itchier skin. I will raise my hand, and I know
itchier.
Remember when my skin used to itch like crazy? I actually think I was perimenopausal when that was happening, and we just couldn't figure it out. And I would try all the lotions and things like that, but I'd be so itchy and have such dry skin. And again, if nobody's talking about this, then it's just like, well, that's an annoying thing.
Yeah.
So for a lot of women, that is their symptom. Another thing that came up, and this actually, this has happened in different times in Menopause Shouldn't Suck, as we're talking, somebody will be like, hey, so I've got this like crazy symptom. Is this possibly a symptom of perimenopause? I've heard wives share that it has felt like a rubber band is snapping their skin.
When it's touched?
Yeah, like or not even being touched. Like the nerves are just kind of short circuiting, and it feels like you've got these like rubber band sensations, or that their skin is crawling, or they're cold, or they've got numbness, or even just kind of like the pins and needles sensitivity. So guys, just think about this for a second. If your wife feels like her skin has got a rubber band snapping on it, and then you go to touch it, she might not be super open to that.
Yeah.
Wives, If your skin is feeling like that, you might need to tell him, because he can't read your mind and know what sensations you are experiencing. Now, you might not have an understanding of why. You might just be like, my skin feels weird. You might not know you're in perimenopause, but to at least be able to share it with him. And the other area where the tissues, the skin can be dramatically impacted is in the vaginal tissues.
Yes.
We hear a lot about the skin becoming thin and dry and inflamed during menopause. And so a lot of women will have painful intercourse, which then, because I know we're talking primarily about physical intimacy, but given that it's still touch, it also impacts your sexual intimacy.
And we had a little bit of that too. Mm-hmm. You begin to notice like just the atrophy of the vagina, where was it, the skin, like the actual skin part, which I didn't realize. Honestly, I'm like, whatever, like I don't, but Elisa could feel something different, and so begin to go and speaking, with her wives in Menopause Shouldn't Suck, and talking about this stuff and going down her own journey of like, okay, well, what do I do? How do I address this?
Absolutely. And for me there, it actually became a thing of like looking at Uberlube or even a vaginal estrogen, estradiol, to be able to help with those tissues. But here's the deal. You're having all of these different sensations, and it can wreak havoc on your physical intimacy. But that doesn't have to be the end. It doesn't have to be the point of disconnect. And we want to talk about what to do after this break.
Mochi Health is a long-term weight loss solution personalized to fit your unique needs and goals. Meet one-on-one with board-certified obesity doctors and registered dietitians who are on a mission to listen. Eligible patients can access custom-formulated GLP-1 medications at an affordable, set price and get them delivered to their home each month. No insurance required, FSA and HSA accepted. With 24/7 customer service available, Mochi Health is here to partner with you on your journey to a healthier life. Take the free quiz at joinmochi.com and use code AUDIO40 at checkout for $40 off your first month of membership. That's joinmochi.com. If you were fixing your bra straps, fussing with wires, or battling your bra during this podcast, stop right now. You'll want to hear this. Those bra problems, those problems you thought you had to live with, Third Love has solved them. Their bras make it easy to get what you want, whether it's ultimate cleavage, a smooth look, or stopping your shirt buttons from pulling. With over 60 sizes, including half cups you won't find anywhere else, you'll never be stuck between two sizes that don't fit. So stop settling for bad bras. Now's the time to treat yourself and get your problem solved. Save $15 on your first order with code PODCAST15 at thirdlove.com.
We're back. And we're talking about what to do when her body is reacting to the hormonal fluctuations in the menopause journey, and touch, or maybe just certain touches, just don't feel good, right? And first of all, I'm gonna repeat what I say to my wives: not every woman, not every symptom, and not all the time, if I could add that on.
And I just want to add this in here. We've mentioned Menopause Shouldn't Suck. If you're interested in learning more about Menopause Shouldn't Suck, go to menopause-shouldn't-suck.com. I'll also have a link here in the episode notes for you. Don't go through this season of life on your own.
And again, I'm just going to add on to that. If you've got questions about it, reach out to me, because I love this community of women. I love how they are real and vulnerable, and how we can have these kinds of conversations. And I recognize that if they're having them and we get to bring this to the one family, what happens if another couple goes, oh, wait, maybe this is happening to us? Maybe this is something that we actually need to, maybe we're in this season and we didn't even realize it, because it hasn't been the cessation of a period yet. It's just been, we're having these weird skin sensations. For a lot of women, it's, they think menopause is going to be all about the hot flash and your period stopping. But there are all of these other symptoms. And these are the symptoms that impact the relational aspect of menopause. So what do you do? Right? Because you're feeling something as a wife, he's picking up on something. What he's picking up on might not be the same thing that you're processing. And, to start with, you have to create a dedicated conversation space a space where you set aside time when you're relaxed, not when it's like just after like the hand started to come across or you said no or whatever that is, but getting into these places and being specific, like my skin feels sensitive. Right.
Here's what I would say with this dedicated conversation space. We've talked about it many a times. Mm-hmm. When it comes to things of this nature, right? If it's charged around the living room, because that's where you cuddle, and now there's that friction there because you don't want to cuddle anymore. Like, take it out of there. Walk and talk. Go do it. Like, just get away. Get outside. Like, right now when this is getting dropped, we're in at the end of spring. We're going to be jumping into summer. Mm-hmm. It's pretty much nice most parts of the country at this point in time. Although I heard from some of our folks in the Midwest, they're still waking up to like 38-degree weather. Not sure how you do that, but God bless you. Go out later in the day.
As I see an alert on my computer right as we're recording this that says heat risk change. So I have no idea what that's about.
It's going to be 90 here.
Yeah.
But when we say this dedicated conversation space, it doesn't need to only be one place all the time. For some of you, it's the fire pit. Like, that's where you're doing your conversations. For some of you, it's sitting by the poolside. It's just the two of you. You're relaxed a little bit. You got your sunscreen on. Find a place that's for you. And if you haven't found one, try different places. Because what we tend to do is go, well, that didn't work once, and so we never pick it up again. Mm-hmm. You've heard us talk about these walk and talks, and some of you are like, not us. But you changed it up. You got into your car and just started driving. Whatever it is, you have to find this place, and it may also change over time.
Absolutely. And in those conversations, and this next one's going to kind of be a twofold, is be specific about the types of touch. Mm-hmm. Ladies, this one's for you. Be specific about the kind of touch that you are open to trying right now. Give him, and this is the second part of it, like give him a touch menu, right? Like create, like you think about it, when you go into your favorite restaurant, there are different options. It's very rare to walk into a restaurant, even like In-N-Out Burger in California, where their menu is much smaller.
Got the secret menu though.
There are still options. Right?
Absolutely.
And you can do the same thing with touch, but when you have that touch menu, then you can say, hey, right now, my arms feel really sensitive. Would you mind doing a back rub or maybe massaging my feet? Or can I just sit next to you because I am feeling hot right now? Whatever it might be, but that engages the conversation and gives you more opportunities to not put that Heisman arm out there and be like, heck to the no.
And now there are going to be times, though, when that still will happen. But it's just the understanding, because I think you and I begin to create that and we begin to understand that. And yet there are still times, again, going back when we used to do some naked cuddling, and Elisa, unbeknownst to her, would be flinging arms at me. Like in the middle of the night. Sleeping. Like, because she was hot. Not that she meant to do it, but I was like, what's going on? And so we had to do this dance of like, okay, what does feel good for you right now? Because she wants it, I want it. It's just right now what we used to do wasn't working.
And really, if you think about this, you want to be able to give your husband a roadmap on what could work and not just put up roadblocks.
That's good.
Right? Stepping into this place of, hey, here are the options. Like, we're coming up to it and stepping into this. Let's actually have the conversation around it. And husbands, I want to say to you that when she's pulling away, it's likely that she's responding to her physical discomfort and not to you. I can't tell you. Not rejecting you. I can't tell you how many times when here we are, we're on our Zoom calls and all the wives are on and we're talking about it, and their heart actually breaks because they don't want you to feel rejected. They don't want to be pushing you away. It's this place where their body feels like it's not their own. And when they try and explain it to you, this is part of the reason why I'm doing this episode, so I can be the one to explain it to you, because sometimes it feels like they're not getting it through. They know you feel rejected. And that hurts them because that's not their intention. They're just trying to figure out, how do I deal with these sensations in my body?
And can I say one thing? And we've said this many a times over the years.
Sure.
At the end of the day, you guys are on the same team. You are. This is a period in time. This is something that the two of you, even though it may be affecting your wife much more than you guys, when I say guys, husbands, but you're still on the same team. And you will get through this like you've gone through all the other things in life. Mm-hmm. This isn't a, man, this is the end of our marriage. It's another challenge that we're facing together. And so, guys, and I can say this because I felt this too. And I'm glad we're having this conversation because it makes me realize that Elisa's heart breaks as well. And it's not just my rejection and me looking at myself and being selfish about only myself, but her being discomforted also breaks her heart because she can't be close to me. Mm-hmm. So realize you're on the same team.
And utilize the other 5 pillars of intimacy. Mm-hmm. Right. It's kind of like when we wrote the book and everybody's like, hey, can we just jump ahead to the chapter on sexual intimacy? And I'm like, hey, there's more to marriage than just sexual intimacy. Let's talk to the 5. This is where there's more to marriage than just the physical intimacy. And this might be one of those things on either side, husbands or wives, to say, hey, I know we both have a need to be connected right now. Wives, you might say, my skin is really sensitive. Could we play a game? Could we go for a walk? Could we
go into that recreational intimacy?
Go into the recreational intimacy. Have a conversation. Go into the emotional intimacy.
Go into your spiritual intimacy.
Pray about it, right? Like all of these things. Or husbands, you might say, okay, I'm starting to feel a little rejected because she's not opening, like she's not stepping into touch with me. Maybe there you need to step forward and say, hey, seems like maybe touch is a little sensitive right now. Let's do something else to connect. And then it becomes an opportunity to bridge towards one another instead of a place where either one of you is feeling like, well, this stinks, and you go retreat to your corners and you keep retreating. And before you know it, you're like, what happened to that chasm between us? Mm-hmm. Instead of going, hey, there are 5 other pillars. Let's talk about this and let's find another way to be close and have that connection. I know there's been a lot. I know we talked a lot about just all of the different things with estrogen and what that looks like, but we do it because we want you to be empowered. I said it earlier in this episode. This is a game-changing episode for Tony and I, even just being able to have this conversation and realize what we didn't know. And that's part of the reason why we're telling you, we want you guys to know if you're in it right now, or maybe you haven't gotten to that stage of marriage where you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to file this one away. And when it starts to happen, we're going to come back to this episode and we're going to have the language to discuss it.
Yep. So you guys go do it. For you wives, if you're interested in Menopause Shouldn't Suck, go to menopause-shouldn't-suck.com or reach out to Elisa. Jump in there with all these amazing wives. I will tell you, I hear from them, and I've met many of them when we were on the Marriage Getaway, and it's an impactful community. So be a part of it. You guys have yourselves a fantastic week. Love you guys. Thank you for listening to the One Extraordinary Marriage Show. If you love this podcast, please leave a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you are listening. Your review helps others find the show and know that it's the right fit for them and their marriage.